increase in unrestricted general government and a 2.7% increase in Chapter 70.
Oh, excellent. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. I've got notes. I can follow them. Let's see, page 20 on the retirement assessment. Just to track down, I want to make sure that I got this correct, that the retirement assessment plan is for it to increase 10% per year.
Yes.
Which would be a doubling of that about every 7 years then. So that's
significant. And yeah, that was strictly based on historical trends. Like this year when we did the target budget, I used 10%, and we just got our assessment, we were like $1,700 difference. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was.
So 10% is was a good figure then.
Yes.
The other question is that, I know how much of that is driven by increase in cost per retiree, how much of that is driven by increased numbers of retirees. The point behind that question is that if we have people it's driven by more retirees, then they will they will be paid their retirements, but they will also be replaced by people presumably drawing less salary from the town. So there may be some silver lining.
Yes, I think it's 2032 that the unfunded liability will be fully funded, and that's a large part of our assessment is because that was a mandate years back that we had to fund the unfunded portion, kind of like OPEB right now, what they did for retirement. But that will have a drop off, so we'll be able to, a lot of towns are planning to put that drop off into OPEB.
Okay.
Right. And then basically, because this was something that came up in 2012, I think, so it was a 20-year.
Yeah, I think it was before then, but
was it? It didn't seem like much, because I remember we were all excited because we were starting to see a positive growth, and we thought that we were going to be able to hit some of our, and then all of a sudden we got slammed with another required expense. So.
And finally, which is probably a great thing for anybody to hear, this is regarding the pavement management plan. And I know that the town passed a proposition to a debt exclusion override to fund that to increase the funding by $50,000 per year for, I believe it was, Jack, 10 years. I just wondered when that sunsets.
So there's two things going on. You have the debt exclusion, which was the $4 million, which is baked into our debt schedule. Under the debt exclusion portion of the debt schedule, and then we have a line account that we put money into every year for pavement management,
Yes,
and we've been increasing it by $50,000 every year till we reach $1 million. So when the effects of the debt exclusion for the pavement management falls off, we'll have sufficient funds to continue making those same improvements to our roads.
And when does that part of it sunset, just so I know? I should know.
We still have bonds that will need to be issued once those funds are used up, the $4 million. So we still a year and a half out till the finalized, probably for the bonds, and the payment schedule goes out 15 years.
Right.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
And great presentation. Thank you.
I
have a question, Heather. Last fall, did we discuss like $1.3 million in free cash surplus?
We have $1.5 million, $1,512,000 in free cash.
Okay, is that being earmarked for other items that we're not seeing tonight, or?
That will be part of my capital plan that I'm going to present, that portion of that. But outside of the capital plan, the plan for use would be to put 100,000 into stabilization. That is in the forecast. 200,000 into the special purpose stabilization, that's in the forecast. And what am I missing? OPEB, 150,000 according to our policy for the OPEB account.
Any other questions from the committee? No questions from the committee? George, do you have more?
I don't have any
I'm sorry, I realized I interrupted you. All right, I guess before moving on then, I would just ask, first I'm going to say that you will spend some time looking at this, you'll absorb it. If you come up with questions in the interim, I'm just going to ask you to send them to myself and Heather, and then at the budget meeting, prior to the budget meeting, we can bring some of those questions forward. But I know that for some people this is fresh, so I will, and then before I address any questions that I might have, I'll just open it up. Is there anybody before we move on to the capital planning, does anybody have any questions that they want to address? Come up to the podium, please.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. Just actually a very simple question. Through you, I'd like to get the town manager to repeat the 3 new positions so I get the designation right as to how they're described.
This will all be part of my budget presentation on February 14th, but put into the forecasts for the target budget numbers for fiscal 20, and it included an additional police officer, additional firefighter, a parks director position, and an assistant town manager position. And that because we're in the development of the budget, you know, we have been focusing on public safety and everything. There's along the way of budgeting, as everyone knows, things come up that, you know, changes the financial picture, so by the 14th, that projection may change, but that's right now the position.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? No? All right, and I just for my own personal edification, and because I like to see numbers go down on the debt expenditures, the big drop in 2022, 2023 is attributable to what? Because at that point, we'll be finally dropping below 10% aggregate debt service if we don't borrow any more money, and then, which I know is not likely. But.
Is that like the library? And
I think there were a combination of projects that fall off.
So when the library falls off, or the
fire station?
They were capital outlays. Yeah, Karen can put them.
I have a question to piggyback onto that. Should I wait, or?
You know, actually, I think we'll go ahead. You can go ahead and ask your question. I'll give Karen a minute.
Is that drop-off have to do with the difference of actual compared to projected expenditures? Because it starts off like the actuals are around like 90,000 between fiscal year 2018 to 2019 actuals, and then they kind of drop off between 2020 to 2021 to around like 45 to 50,000.
Are you talking about the debt schedule?
Are you looking at the expenditures for debt?
I'm looking at, oh, maybe.
You're
I'm
not
on page 22.
Okay, all right, I'm on page
helps.
23. Yeah, I should have probably said so.
I'm on the first line too.
Right.
I haven't gone through the whole thing yet.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, basically, I can wait until the budget, and I can go home and look it up myself. That's fine. I think basically it's just that there is a big project coming off, and which is good to know.
We can answer that later in the meeting.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more questions or on the financial forecast itself, then we'll move on to the capital investment plan presentation. Okay. And I will again just reiterate that there are copies of all of the presentations up on the table. So if anybody needs a copy.
So we can start off by what qualifies as a capital project. The town's policy on capital expenditures, which is Financial Policy Section 3.02, defines capital projects as items that cost $10,000 or more and have a useful life of 3 years or longer. So the process that's taken for capital planning in Lunenburg is the Capital Planning Committee creates a capital plan that consists of all capital requests made by each town department for the next 5 fiscal years. The Capital Planning Committee's first meeting to begin the fiscal 20 capital planning process was on October 2nd, and the capital planning documents were sent to departments on November 1st, and the Capital Planning Committee met with departments throughout November to review all the capital project requests as a group. Based on the meetings with the departments and the budget provided by the town manager, the Capital Planning Committee prioritized all the capital project requests for fiscal 20 and provided the prioritized list to the town manager. The town manager may modify and/or add to this list of capital projects as part of the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. This capital budget is presented at the annual town meeting, amended as necessary to reflect the will of town meeting, and then is voted on. And just as a precursor, the plan that's coming before you, there was no modifications made to what the prioritization list that the Capital Planning Committee provided to me. So in all, there were 17 capital requests for fiscal 20, totaling $2,853,100, $126,500 for general government, $1,403,000 for facilities, $132,000 for police, $1,010,000 for fire, and $181,600 for schools. One correction I just want to denote on this chart is that the marked cruiser, and we'll get into this later in the presentation, would be for $68,000 for hybrid cruiser and $48,000 for the unmarked hybrid cruiser. So if it turns out we need to purchase regular and not hybrid cruisers, those funds would be turned back as unexpended capital for future capital projects. So the general government requests included 5 voting tablets to replace the 20-year-old voting equipment that the town clerk currently has. The current machines are no longer supported, and the total request for that is $26,500. Master plan funding for the planning board to use to hire consultant or facilitator to work on sections of the master plan and implementation of the recommendations. The capital request was for $100,000. You'll see later on in the plan it includes $50,000 for that request and the decision to split it into two years. Mm-hmm. For capital requests for facilities, there is a capital request for the public safety building automation system, as this project was submitted in 2016, fiscal 2016, and will create greater energy savings by automating temperatures and the ability to remotely control and monitor the system. This capital request was for $16,000. The painting of the exterior of the teen center was submitted as a project in fiscal 16. This request is for $12,000. The removal and replacement of the fuel tanks at the DPW. The original capital request for this project was funded in fiscal 2017 for $110,000 for the work to be done in-house. We've since re-examined that project and received new estimates for using fully engineered plans and outsourcing the project. This would require an additional $220,000. Improvements to Wallace Park basketball court and fence replacement. This would resurface the basketball court and replace all the fencing around the court. And that capital request is for $36,000. On police capital requests, one marked and one unmarked police cruiser. That corresponds to the regular replacement schedule of patrol vehicles. The replacement of the chief's vehicle and an additional cruiser due to staffing increase. Those are the two cruisers. The anticipated replacement is with hybrid cruisers, as discussed, and the total capital request is for $116,000. There's also a request for a replacement of patrol rifles and shotguns due to life expectancy of those of being 10 years old or more. Capital request is for $16,000 for that items. Fire department capital requests, the largest capital request that you'll see in the capital plan is for the replacement of the 1995 pumper, engine 4. It has served beyond its expected lifespan, and this is the third year that it's been requested for replacement. It has approximately $65,000 in repairs in the last 4 to 5 years that have been put into the engine 4, most recently with the pump replacement, which was about $16,000 itself. Replacement of the unit would see increased reliability, better safety for personnel and citizens, and decreased maintenance costs. Due to the extreme competitiveness of grants, there have been 2 unsuccessful attempts made through federal grants, and which have not been awarded. The average age of our fleet does not meet the federal benchmark for eligibility. That's one reason for not receiving a federal grant. Replacement will lower annual maintenance costs, as previously described, to how much we've put into this engine, and it will lower those for the next 5 to 10 years for that engine. And the total for that request, as I said, is $685,000.
Okay.
This is a picture of our current engine. I know it looks nice and shiny, but if you go through it and you speak with the fire chief and talk to him about what issues they're currently having with the engine and what obstacles and challenges they face with that piece of equipment. Another request through the fire department is for the replacement of the 2008 ambulance, Rescue 2. The vehicle is at the end of its life cycle. This is the second year it's been requested for replacement. The current unit serves as a backup for the other ambulance, but is not strictly a reserve unit. The unit is experiencing increasing maintenance costs and is out of service for repairs. Has stress cracks noted in the annual state inspection. And the new unit would become the primary ambulance, and the 2014 would be reserved as a backup unit. And the 2008 would then be used for a water rescue unit, which is used less frequently. There's no grant funding for ambulances, so that's not an option. Replacement would equate to decreased maintenance costs for the next 4 to 5 years and increases reliability. And the total request for that is $310,000. And another picture of our current ambulance. The third fire department capital request is for the replacement of 2 vital sign monitors. The current vital sign monitors in each ambulance are 10 years or older and are obsolete and are no longer able to be calibrated. This was flagged during recent ambulance inspection, as this is a mandate to maintain our level of licensure. They must be replaced regardless of replacement cycle of ambulances. They are portable. That was a question that had been asked at a previous meeting. So regardless of the new ambulance, it's a portable unit that goes along. There's no impact to operating costs, and the total capital request is for $15,000. School capital requests include the Turkey Hill asbestos abatement, another phase of that project. It's a continuation of the abatement at Turkey Hill, and this includes removing spray on fireproofing in room 102, 1 stairwell, and the 2nd floor hallway. And that capital request is for $162,000. The primary school and Turkey Hill Wi-Fi upgrade. This is the last year to take advantage of a state grant that exists that will provide, I believe it's 50% of the cost of that project. And the capital request is for $19,600 for the town's portion. Projects that were not funded, that were requested as part of the fiscal 20 plan include the Ritter repairs that were identified in the Vertex property condition report for years 0 to 1 and for $168,000. The TC Passios repairs identified in the Vertex for years 0 through 1, totaling $786,000. The Brooks House Vertex property condition repairs included for years 0 to 1, totaling $165,000. And as I mentioned previously, for the master plan, reducing that total request from $100,000 to $50,000. And so the total budget for the capital plan will be a combination of tax revenues, unexpended capital, and a small amount from a bond premium that must be used on capital, and the majority from free cash. So as you see, it takes, within tax revenue, $600,000, uses $910,620.51 from free cash. We have available from unexpended capital $167,129, and the premium reserve for capital $6,350.49, for a total of $1,684,100. And that's all.
Okay. Maybe a silly question, but on the voting machines going forward, I'm going to assume that if the state moves towards rank order voting, this is going to be something that will be accommodated by these machines.
I'm sorry, say that again. To early voting?
Rank order.
Oh, rank. I can't answer that question.
I'm just curious, because if we're going to hold on to them for 20 years, and if it's possible the state moves that way, it'd be nice to know that they'll work.
Yeah, if they'd have to be calibrated, that would be a question I can ask the town clerk.
That would be awesome, thanks. I could have also directed it to our member of the capital planning committee.
But I would have to ask somebody myself, too.
Okay. And then the other question is just where exactly are we in the Turkey Hill abatement process?
We have, if you look at, you have this chart that shows 10 years. It is on, there's one more year for 98,000, I think it is.
Yep.
Why do I not see this? Oh,
yep,
it's a separate document. Okay, thank you. Okay.
In fiscal 21.
We're getting close to the end.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Heather, there's a line item for $50,000 on here for a master plan.
Yes.
What is that?
So the last time the master plan was done by the town was 2002. And so this would be funding to, let me go back a step. If you look, a master plan is kind of a big picture view of how you want to tie into your capital plan, because it tells you all the needs of the community, whether it be infrastructure, facilities, recreation, so long-term plans for the town in all those areas, which should inform your capital plan as well, what the needs of the town are, so you can plan that way. So since that hasn't been updated in so long, the planning board, I believe, and this is for really them to answer, because they'll be able to use the funds as they choose fit, hire a consultant or a facilitator to review the sections of that have been done, and whether they need to be updated or whether they are looking to implement portions of that and help with that process. So that's what that would in essence be used for.
Okay, and then just to clarify again, that the actual cost of the fuel tanks at DPW is really $330,000.
Yes.
But so the $110,000 is not, that's already been, has that been spent or it's available?
No, it was a capital article in a previous capital plan that has not been expended.
Okay, so but that number does not also exist in the unexpended capital line that's on this document? So that's not, okay.
It's outside of that.
Okay.
Yes. And if I can explain that a little further, just reviewing it rather than doing it in-house and the potential liability of doing it in-house, there's a greater risk than benefit by outsourcing it and having completely engineered plans where we can hold outside vendors, accountable and for that liability to the town.
Okay, can you speak then a little bit about what the $167,000 in unexpended capital would be from?
Yes, so $130,000 of that is the asbestos abatement that we just, the funds we received that were in the fiscal 19 state budget. $25,000 is from the police department because they received the fingerprint machine free of charge from the state. So that's available to be used, and there's other minor lines that can be closed out where those previous capital articles weren't fully expended.
Do we have any other questions on the capital plan?
Just a preface, and then just to chase down this. Pretty much zeroes out our unexpended line for capital going forward. We don't have any balance on the unexpended capital going forward.
No, we do. This is what we know is available to be used. There are projects that haven't been fully expended. For instance, the 110 for the fuel tanks, that's there for use. So between now and town meeting, that there might be more projects closed out that would be available for future use.
Closed out at less than we anticipated.
Yes.
Would be. So this we may have, going forward into the next capital round, we may have some extra money around that could help us. Because basically what's really kind of neat is that got a nearly 1.7 million capital acquisition plan, including 4 large projects, if you define large projects as being over $100,000. And it looks like this plan will be able to fund those without having to increase our debt, without having to borrow any money at all, which is really kind of neat.
Yes.
We're going to need some flexibility later on for the Vertex, so it's kind of a nice way to set that table. So really good.
Yes, thank you.
Which actually just kind of, one of the questions I had was, do we take this to be that at this point the Capital Planning Committee has taken on the responsibility for costs associated with the Vertex report and buildings?
I've had discussions with the Capital Planning Committee about those and putting them in the capital plan, because I think all known costs and repairs should, if they're, qualify as a capital expenditure, should be on the plan, regardless if we're going to fund them or not. If it's a living document, it changes where, maybe a whole different direction has changed with the building, it's going to change those figures. But I think they deserve to be on the plan, just so they're on our radar, as this is what it's going to cost to repair those and upkeep those buildings in their current use.
Okay, so at this point then, there's no other plan outside of this to address any of the costs that are associated with that? No decisions made in terms of going forward with any of those renovations?
The Board of Selectmen has been, having workshops and, moving towards a plan for the 5 buildings that are in the capital plan, with some direction, but those decisions will need to be made still.
Okay.
Heather, do you know, are there any other fuel tanks on town property that are in the ground?
None that I know of.
So this will be a one and...
Removed, was at the old primary school, I believe.
Okay.
Unless you count the old gas station currently town property?
No.
No.
Okay. So this is a one and done expenditure then?
Yes.
On these?
For fuel tanks.
Great.
Is there a lifespan on those? So when this is replaced, then it'll show up again in...
Well, the new material, fiberglass, the ones that are in the ground now are double wall steel, and they're past their 25 to 30 year life. We have leak monitors, nothing's leaking, but we're not going to take that chance.
Okay. Questions from the floor? Mr. Passios.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I've actually got two questions. I think I'd like to go back to Engine 4's page first and ask for a little bit better explanation about the reasons that we have not been eligible for the grant money that we've gone after. I'd like to hear an expanded explanation of that if we could.
Well, I mean, I highlighted the information that I know from the chief about that request. Just let me pull that up. So those grants are extremely competitive. Usually the grant awards are to much larger cities and towns, like Boston, Worcester, for those types of pieces of equipment. They have to, the age of our fleet also comes into play as far as qualifying for those grants.
I asked a question specifically about that. Does that mean that in general our fleet with our fire department is much younger than what most other fire departments are running with in the state? Or
Opposite. It's older than most.
what's older?
Our fleet, meaning a 1995, we're replacing a 1995 vehicle that passes at town meeting. That's
Okay, I understand what we're doing in town, but that sentence makes a statement about a comparison of our fleet to other fleets in the state, and I'm trying to understand whether that says that the other fleets in the state are older than ours or newer than ours. And I'm not sure that you have a clear answer to that.
I can't answer definitively, but from what I understand, the federal requirements for this grant require a new